Incredible $500 million deal, 7 beautiful women transform this blind billionaire's life forever. Jack Thompson sat in his penthouse, the city sprawled below like an uncharted territory. Though he had built a tech empire worth billions, darkness enveloped him, the irony of a blind billionaire. The walls echoed with whispers of success, but they felt more like a cage. He felt wealthy yet remained painfully impoverished in the currency of companionship. The looming $500 million merger gnawed at him like an unfinished puzzle, tantalizing yet terrifying. Could it elevate his legacy, or would it lead to catastrophic failure? He had often heard the phrase, "It's lonely at the top," but it had never resonated more than now. Surrounded by opulence, the silence burrowed deeper into his soul. His assistant's precise footsteps brought him momentary comfort, but they couldn't fill the absence of laughter, love, or even simple, honest conversation. He had carved out a reputation. He was a formidable player in Silicon Valley, but unanswered questions enveloped him. What did he want to achieve beyond wealth? What was he sacrificing at the altar of ambition? On the day he met the group of women in an upscale coffee shop, he could have sworn his senses tingled with possibilities. Mia, Laura, Nadia, and a myriad of other vibrant personalities, each with resilience woven into their stories. As they spoke, Jack reeled from the brightness of their energy. They seemed to represent everything he had neglected, a tapestry of dreams struggling for life. Yet, the familiar whispers of doubt seeped through the cracks of their enthusiasm. Why would they want to engage with someone like me? He thought. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Despite the connection blooming between them, a jagged edge sliced through Jack's thoughts. Was he truly worthy of their time? They were fighting their own battles, each story a testament of spirit, a clash against life's hard realities. As they immersed him in their world, he felt a shift inside him, a question emerging: could he allow himself to trust these women? Joy turned into tension as news of a scandal swept through the digital world, aimed right at his company. Whispers of corruption crept into their collaborations, sowing distrust. Would they still see him as the millionaire engineer forging a brighter future? Or would they question the integrity of his intentions? The corporate storm rumbled in his mind, drowning out the laughter that had momentarily warmed him. Doubts gnawed at his insides. Were their growing bonds real or merely strategic? In that precarious moment, Jack clung tightly to the fragile connections, aware that he stood on the precipice of both professional disaster and personal awakening. Jack felt at the tear in his carefully constructed world pulling him towards a relentless dilemma. In the quest for success, had he lost the very thing that could grant him peace? A storm brewed both in the city and within him, leaving everything unresolved, a cliffhanger awaiting its climax. As the shadows deepened, Jack found himself wrestling with shadows of ambition, greed, and the intricate dance of human connection. Would he find the courage to step out of his gilded cage or retreat back into isolation? The answer lingered just beyond his grasp, taut with tension and intricacy, drawing him closer to inevitable confrontation. The tension in Jack's world tightened as he navigated through the aftermath of the scandal. Every notification on his phone felt like a poacher, raiding the fragile sanctuary he had begun to build. The news articles, bathed in sensationalism, pricked at the edges of his sanity, distracting him from his focus on the merger. While the professional storm swirled externally, internal combat raged on. Trust seemed like a luxury he no longer possessed in both himself and the women who had stirred something deep within him. With each passing hour, the silence in his penthouse underscored his gnawing doubts. He felt estranged from his own narrative, as confusion and self-judgment plagued his thoughts. Despite his wealth and status, connections felt tenuous, as if they could unravel with a single forced smile. Would Mia, with her gentle laughter, still want to partner with a man facing potential collapse? Would Laura see only a dollar sign, a failed leader, where once she saw him as a visionary. The very thought wrapped around his heart like a vice, squeezing out whatever hope dared to linger. Determined to change the narrative, Jack eyed his office a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around him. He had a team to lead, and a merger to secure. First on his list was a bold decision. A conference call with the board would come next, but before that, he needed something to ground him. He decided to meet with Mia, stepping into the sunlight outside his penthouse. The warmth felt foreign but invigorating. It was time to reclaim agency, to confront uncertainty rather than let it consume him. As he made his way to the cafe where they first convened, Jack pondered over what he might say. Each step brought forth new thoughts. Honesty and vulnerability seemed like his only allies. He imagined laying bare his fears about the merger, the sense of isolation that had crept in. Perhaps there was a chance that sharing this nebulous burden would forge a deeper connection. When he entered the cafe, the buzz of conversation enveloped him, scattering his earlier resolve. But there she was, Mia, her radiant energy dispelling the creeping shadows in his mind. They exchanged pleasantries, the ambient noise melting into a distant hum. As they settled at a table, Jack felt the urge to free the words trapped within him. Mia, he began after a moment, I need to tell you about what is happening with my company. It's not just PR fallout. It's something deeper, and I'm not sure how to maneuver it. She listened intently, her eyes a well of understanding. Through her careful probing and supportive demeanor, Jack began to unveil the layers of his struggle. I've built this empire yet feel as if it's all crumbling, and I wonder if I'm deserving of the people around me, all of you. Mia's response surprised him. Jack, every success comes with its own set of trials. But you have something special, an ability to inspire. It was part of why we all connected. We've all faced adversity, your story reflects that too. Her words caressed his insecurities, igniting a flicker inside of him. The warmth spread, pushing back the shadows that had claimed too much ground in his heart. Perhaps he could be open about vulnerability, not just around business, but about who he was. Moments of authenticity like these knit connections deeper, like threads stitching a tapestry of resilience. But would he have the courage to be transparent about both his fears and hopes with the others? As they left the cafe, the whirlwind of thoughts swirled again. Could this newfound trust manifest into action? The path ahead was murky, but he felt something shifting. What if they could work together not just as business partners but collaborators in navigating the uncharted weight of ambition versus connection? That night, as he conducted a frantic review of the merger, the flickering screens reflected not just graphs and currency but the faces of Mia, Laura, and the others. The clock ticked steadily toward the day of reckoning, a moment where everything could either gel into triumph or fracture into chaos. With nervous determination simmering beneath the surface, Jack gathered all essential documents for the conference call ahead. But even with strategies lined up, he had a gut feeling that navigating human relationships would require a compass far sharper than he anticipated. Would he muster the components needed to cultivate both a thriving enterprise and meaningful bonds? And as he readied himself for the board's response, one haunting thought emerged: could authenticity be the ultimate strategy in this high-stakes game? The moment of truth loomed ever closer, and everything hung in delicate balance, a simmering cauldron of ambition and connection, waiting to break. The boardroom was ice-cold, an atmosphere heavy with unspoken judgments and ambitious whispers. As Jack sat at the head of the long table, he felt the weight of the assembled executives pressing down like a leaden shroud. This was the moment he had prepared for, but instead of confidence, his mind raced with the concern of how his recent personal revelations might influence others' perceptions of him. Was he still a leader in their eyes, or had the scandal robbed him of that identity? Jack, you've circled the point, but we need clarity, a board member, Mark, interjected with a skeptical furrowed brow. What is the actionable strategy if the merger doesn't proceed as anticipated? Jack's heart quickened. The doubt echoed in Mark's words reflected more than just professional skepticism, it crept into his personal reflections and fears. Would he be seen as wanting, incapable of guiding his team, perhaps even a liability? But beneath the surface of doubt, another feeling bubbled, an urge to confront this head-on. No more dancing around the issues. Drawing in a deep breath, Jack stood tall, channeling everything he had learned in his conversation with Mia. This merger represents more than just numbers on a page, it represents a trust that we have a shared vision, he began, his voice gaining strength. Yes, we face challenges. But adversity breeds opportunity. I am reaching out to you all not just to discuss strategies, but to foster collaboration and innovation. I believe we can transform this into a robust partnership. He could see the reactions ripple through the room. Some eyebrows lifted in mild surprise, while others sank deeper into skepticism. Yet, something shifted in Jack. He felt a pulse of determination surging through him. He could lead this not with perfect answers, but through vulnerability and genuine connection. Let me be candid, he continued, heart racing. I've wrestled with trust in myself, trust in this partnership. But I recognize the value each of you brings. If we are to move forward, we must do so together, acknowledging our fears and our hopes. Your voices are as vital as any data point in this analysis. Tension filled the air. Jack's words hung heavily, awaiting validation or condemnation. Silence stretched on, an eternity, before Laura, his right-hand woman, broke it with a firm nod. You're right, Jack. We've navigated murky waters before. I'm in. If we commit to this, let us dig deep and harness our individual strengths, meld them into something transformative. A chorus of agreement followed, a collective exhale of pressure. Inspiration surged among the board members. Jack hadn't just offered a strategy, he had wielded authenticity as a powerful tool, aligning their ambitions with his newfound perspective on leadership. With the momentum building, Jack dissected the proposed merger's details, inviting feedback and making space for questions. Every inquiry felt less like scrutiny and more like a pathway toward shared solutions. It was exhilarating. He was no longer a man veiled in uncertainty, he was a leader who broke the chains of isolation by fostering an environment where honesty and cooperation flourished. After the intense discussion, Jack left the conference room feeling buoyant. The self-judgment that had hung over him all week began to dissipate. As he strolled through the company halls, the lively chatter and collaboration echoed back to him like a promise of renewed faith. However, this revelation ignited another worry: was he prepared to exert this newfound authenticity beyond business? Was he ready to bridge the emotional distance with Mia and Laura in the same way he had with the board? As he closed the door to his office, an unanswered text pinged on his phone. It was Mia, asking to meet again. The blend of anticipation and trepidation washed over him. Could he translate the steps he took today into his personal life? Jack's gut tightened with the weight of those potential connections, each tethering him back to the humanity he had long neglected. With tomorrow's meeting with Mia looming, he faced a new challenge: to let her see the vulnerable man behind the billionaire mask and risk revealing more of himself than he ever had before. Would she embrace this side of him, or would it drive a wedge where he hoped to draw closer? The answer hung in the air, tantalizingly just out of reach. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow onto Jack's office as he prepared for his meeting with Mia. The soft hum of the city below seeped into the silence, amplifying the intensity of his thoughts. He had navigated the icy waters of the boardroom, but now found himself facing the unpredictable currents of personal connection that he replayed their last encounter in his mind, the raw exchange, the vulnerability that had nearly overwhelmed him. Each moment of uncertainty crept back as he envisioned what might happen when they met again. Would he open up, revealing his true self? And if so, would she reciprocate or reject what he offered? Taking a deep breath, Jack pushed aside his apprehension about the meeting. Today was not just about presenting a polished version of himself, but rather the man beneath the layers he had carefully constructed. He paced the room, rehearsing phrases in his mind, trying to shape the moment. He wanted to express his fears and hopes, to reach out in a genuine way, yet the enormity of that hope felt burdensome. When the clock struck 4, he grabbed his jacket, feeling the weight of expectation settle back on his shoulders. The meeting place was a quaint cafe nearby, a favored spot for its eclectic charm. As he walked, Jack pondered how the skills he honed in the boardroom could transfer to this personal realm. Could he metaphorically facilitate discussions with Mia, much like he had with his executive team? When he arrived, Mia was already seated at a corner table, her presence grounding him amid the chaos in his mind. She looked up, and the warmth in her smile melted some of his tension. Yet, as she waved him over, the gravity of the moment struck him again. Could he truly share his vulnerabilities? "Thanks for coming," he said, forcing a smile, but felt it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course, I wanted to talk," Mia replied, her brow briefly furrowing with concern as she studied his expression. "Something's different about you, Jack. I can sense it." It was an observation piercing through his facade, and he realized he couldn't hide behind his polished exterior any longer. "I've been trying to figure out what matters most. In business and personally. It's complicated." "Complicated can be good," she responded, her eyes encouraging him to delve deeper. "What's been on your mind?" Jack hesitated. He took a sip of coffee, letting it invigorate his courage. Maybe Mia was right, perhaps transparency could open doors rather than shut them. "I've been reflecting on trust, how I've built walls around me," he admitted, a knot tightening in his stomach. "Both in the office and in my life." As he spoke, he recognized a shift within himself. He was shedding old layers, allowing honesty to surface. With each word, he felt lighter, the weight of pretense evaporating as he expressed the depth of his fears, his longing for authentic connection. For the first time, he shared fragments of his childhood, moments that shaped him into the guarded man he had become. "I've chased success to avoid feeling inadequate. But in the process, I lost touch with who I am." Mia listened intently, her gaze unwavering. She reached across the table, her hand brushing against his and igniting a connection that transcended words. "Jack, everyone has fears. It's okay to feel vulnerable. That's part of being human." Her understanding was both soothing and transformative. Yet, as he began to feel a flicker of hope, doubt crept in again. How much was he willing to reveal? What if she couldn't accept the true him? The weight returned, pressing on his chest even as a newfound resolve kindled within him. Perhaps this engagement with Mia was not just about connection, it was a dialogue of transformation, allowing vulnerability could ultimately redefine his perception of leadership, both in professional and personal spheres. As they continued to talk, Jack felt the contours of his identity shifting yet again. The exploration of his fears opened new possibilities of growth. Could he trust this woman with his deeper self without fear of judgment? Absorbed in their conversation, he almost missed the waiter approaching their table, but he caught the half-smile exchanged between Mia and the server. Just as he began to respond, her eyes glinted with something he couldn't place, a profound understanding or perhaps an invitation to go deeper. Suddenly, Jack sensed that the conversation was reaching a pivotal moment, one that could either deepen their bond or unravel it. Could he take the plunge, risking everything for a shot at authenticity? The answer loomed before him, a question mark hanging in the air, poised to reshape everything that followed. The atmosphere shifted as Jack caught the intensity of Mia's gaze. For a fleeting second, he felt as if every layer he had built was stripped away, leaving behind raw honesty. Would this vulnerability lead to connection or expose him further to the risks he so ardently avoided? He swallowed hard, and before he could second-guess himself, he leaned closer. "Mia, there are things about me that might surprise you. Things I don't talk about, even with the closest people in my life." The smile on her face shimmered with support, urging him forward like a lighthouse guiding a lost ship. "I'm not going anywhere, Jack. Please, share whatever you need." Her reassurance sparked a newfound courage within him. He took a deep breath, preparing himself to unveil parts of his life he had long concealed, hesitant to break away from the image of the successful, composed executive. "I've dealt with fear ever since I can remember, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. I buried myself in work, thinking that accomplishments would fill that void." As the words poured out, he felt a simultaneous release and exposure, the truth resonating as he elaborated on experiences that haunted him, the fierce competition he faced in his early years, the feeling of inadequacy that had previously paralyzed him in authentic relationships. An unexpected fragility enveloped him, echoing in the depth of Mia's attention. What you just said, she began softly, is something so many people around you will never understand. They see the surface, the triumphs, but they don't see the man striving beneath it all. Jack appreciated her acknowledgement, but satisfaction couldn't settle in yet. But you understand it, and it scares me how readily I'm exposing this. What if you can't handle it? What if the man I think I am isn't someone you want to be with? Mia shook her head, an unwavering resolve in her expression. I wouldn't have come here if I didn't want to know you, Jack. The true you. As they spoke, a flood of emotions crashed through him: self-doubt, relief, and a deep-rooted desire for acceptance. Yet, amidst this whirlwind, another realization clawed at the back of his mind: how could he genuinely open himself up without the fear of judgment? Can I ask you something? He ventured, half embarrassed by the boldness of his next question. What if I'm too broken or too flawed for the kind of connection I hope to have? What if I disappoint you once I can no longer mask my imperfections? Mia's brows furrowed, and she leaned in slightly, her expression serious yet compassionate. Jack, every single person is a tapestry of imperfections. It's in those very flaws where we find our shared humanity. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. Jack's heart raced as her words settled into him. It dawned on him that it was this acceptance of human flaws that would guide him in redefining what leadership meant: not an embodiment of perfection, but a willingness to connect amid the uncertainty of it all. And yet, as the conversation flowed, Jack felt a sudden swell of anxiety. Would he really allow himself to embrace the depth of this connection, or would he retreat back to the safety of solitude? As he observed Mia, her genuine interest radiating warmth, he struggled against the familiar instinct to withdraw into defense mechanisms. He could sense the potential for transformation lurking in this encounter, but the shadows of his past still haunted him. Moments of fear sneaked in, whispering doubts that warned against taking such a significant step forward. Mia, I want to be real with you, but the past, it's a heavy burden. Then let us carry it together, she replied firmly. Could he share the weight of his history and not fear being crushed by it? A flicker of hesitation ignited inside him, but with Mia's gaze locked onto his, a fragile yet powerful sense of possibility began to emerge. As he contemplated their pivotal exchange, Jack realized that he stood at a crossroads: an opportunity to embrace the unknown, a chance for genuine connection that might redefine everything he thought about himself. But just as he felt ready to unveil more of his troubled past, a text notification buzzed on his phone, pulling his attention away. The screen lit up with the logo of his company, the urgency of the message juxtaposed against the intimate moment with Mia. Can he actually choose this vulnerability, or must he prioritize the demands of his professional life? The tension rose within Jack, leaving him suspended in indecision. The truth of his past was about to collide with the realities of his future. The time had come to face not only his fears but the very choices that would shape the direction of his life. Would he surrender the path he had walked for so long, or would he refine his understanding of himself in the process? The buzz of his phone reverberated like a siren call, yanking Jack back to the harsh light of reality. He glanced at the screen: a critical message from his assistant detailing an emergency meeting with investors. They would expect him to deliver good news, to embody the unwavering leader they believed him to be. Yet, sitting across from Mia, the very idea of slipping back into that role felt suffocating. The weight of his inner conflict pressed against his chest, a stark reminder that the external world clamored for his attention while the internal one beckoned him to linger in vulnerability. Mia, he hesitated, words caught between his instincts to flee and the urge to reveal more. I need to take this. I'll be just a moment. He rose from the table, the chill of the room contrasting with the warmth of their conversation. As he stepped outside into the hallway, a sliver of anxiety tightened around him. He could already predict the corporate jargon, the expected bravado. The sharp change from intimate revelation to detached urgency made his stomach churn. Jack read through the message again, his mind racing. This meeting could mean significant benefits for the company or devastating losses. The stakes had never felt higher. Yet as he paced, He caught himself replaying his conversation with Mia, the freedom that came from admitting his fears, the way her acceptance made him feel seen. He couldn't ignore the newfound determination bubbling beneath the surface. Why shouldn't he approach this meeting with the same level of honesty he had shown Mia? After all, if he wanted to build authentic relationships in his professional life, transparency might be the cornerstone he had previously overlooked. What if he could inspire his team to embrace vulnerability too? With a deep breath, he made a plan in his mind. He would enter the meeting prepared, yes, but he would also be open about the uncertainties they faced. A sense of empowerment swelled within him. He would no longer perform the role but engage genuinely. Suddenly, he felt more confident than ever, drafted by a purpose that resonated. Resolute, he returned to the table with Mia, who was sitting quietly, her expression curious but patient. "I had to take that message," he said, locking eyes with her, "but it pushed me to realize something important. I don't want to just be a mask for everyone around me anymore." Mia's eyes sparkled with understanding as she leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to tell my team the truth about where we stand. I want to strip the layers down just like I did with you. We're in a challenging place, and instead of pretending we have all the answers, I think it might be more powerful to acknowledge our weaknesses together." Her smile broadened, full of pride. "That takes so much courage, Jack. It shows leadership in a way few people understand. You're starting to see the strength in your vulnerabilities." But beneath the exhilaration lay a flicker of concern. This transparency could cost him, or it might just transform everything. As they continued to discuss the challenges he faced in the corporate arena, Jack felt the comfort of their connection tightening like a rope around him, grounding him in purpose. Could he balance this openness with the responsibilities demanding his attention? He suddenly remembered the text message: "The investors will come, and they will want assurances. Can I continue to be honest and still lead effectively?" Mia placed her hand on his, interrupting his spiraling thoughts. "Leading is about trust, Jack. Trust starts with vulnerability. Remember, you don't have to carry this alone." With that, a different kind of clarity washed over him. This was not merely about his past or his present struggles, it was about envisioning a future entirely shifted. A future where he could embrace a greater sense of authenticity in his career and among the people he worked with. Yet, as the conversation flowed, another notification pinged on his phone, the harshness of reality creeping back in. This one signaled impending decisions that loomed just out of sight, threatening his newfound resolve. Would he commit to his pursuit of authenticity, even when faced with the demands of stakeholders who relied on him? Or would he slip back into the shadows of his former self when the pressure mounted? The next chapter of his life was waiting just around the corner, but to step into it, he would first have to confront the realities that threatened to engulf him once more. Stepping into the conference room, Jack's heart thumped with an urgency that mirrored the fluorescent lights above. The long table was set, documents meticulously arranged in front of each investor, but what astounded Jack more than the pristine setup was the palpable tension suffusing the air. This was not merely a meeting, it was a battleground where confidence had to rise or fall with every word spoken. That he took a deep breath, recalling Mia's encouraging words about vulnerability. Drawing a mental picture of her steady gaze, he felt the stirrings of the resolve he had discovered during their conversation. As he moved closer to the head of the table, Jack realized he had to adjust the narrative in his mind. This wasn't about putting on a show, it was about connecting. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I appreciate your support, especially during these challenging times. Today, I want to talk about where we currently stand." An uneasy silence greeted his statement. He could see skepticism etched on their faces. They wanted reassurance that he would steer them clear of disaster. Jack paused, the weight of their gazes forcing him to confront the very essence of his anxiety. "Our projections haven't gone as planned," he admitted, feeling his chest tighten. "We're facing setbacks, and I want to be upfront about the difficulties that lie ahead." The room shifted. Eyes darted between him and the glossy pie charts and optimistic forecasts he had considered presenting. Would they see him as weak for acknowledging this? He continued, his heart racing. But I truly believe that by confronting these challenges together, we can find innovative solutions. The words came out more assertively than he had anticipated, fueled by the memory of Mia's faith in him. I think there's transformative power in vulnerability. If we can admit our uncertainties, we can work as a cohesive unit toward rebuilding our strategy. A murmur erupted among the investors. Jack sensed that some were intrigued while others were hesitant, their brows furrowing as they evaluated his newfound approach. The quiet yet intense scrutiny brought forth a rush of doubt. Maybe he had overstepped, maybe honesty wasn't what they wanted. Was this truly the right course of action? One investor, a seasoned woman renowned for her shrewdness, leaned forward. Jack, you speak of vulnerability, but when it comes to finances, we expect clear leadership and unwavering direction. How do you reconcile this admission with a need for results? The question cut deep, but something shifted within him. By creating a culture of transparency, he replied, sensing the momentum shifting toward them. If we can harness open dialogue, perhaps we can discover untapped potential in our teams. His voice strengthened as he elaborated. Just like in life, business isn't about avoiding conflicts, it's about learning to navigate them together. Her frown eased slightly, and Jack saw an opening. We need each of you as part of this journey, willing to share insights, strategies, or challenges. Collaboration may be our best tool to redefine our path forward. He finished his presentation feeling raw, exposed but invigorated, as if shedding layers of armor he had worn for too long. He was met with silence, followed by a wave of murmured conversations among the investors. He searched their faces, and unease trickled back in. While some seemed genuinely contemplative, others looked skeptical. Could he maintain this authenticity when they laid out their expectations and demands? When they pushed back against his vulnerability with the cold steel of numbers and demands? As Jack unwound from the tense atmosphere of the room, another thought crept in, a realization that perhaps he had crossed a divide, unveiling not just his struggles but his potential to lead differently. Who would he become if he embraced this shifted perspective? The door creaked open, and a new wave of investors stepped in. With another group's arrival, the stakes had just escalated. Jack took a deep breath, ready to face them with the new clarity he possessed. But as he looked ahead, he knew the impending conversations would test the very foundation on which he had begun to build this career transformation. Would he hold on to this authenticity, or would the pressure compel him to retreat into the shadows of his former self? All eyes were now on him once more. The time had come to face the true test of his resolve. Jack stood at the head of the table, absorbing the fresh wave of investors with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. Each newcomer seemed to amplify the stakes, underscoring how far he had ventured from his old, defensive self. The first investor in the group, a middle-aged man with a crisp tie and a penetrating gaze, introduced himself and wasted no time in getting to business. Let's cut to the chase, Jack. We've heard rumors about the company's struggles. What's your solid plan moving forward? The directness threw him momentarily off balance. Yes, he had embraced vulnerability, but did it work in the face of such unforgiving pragmatism? Jack felt sweat bead at his temples, but he reminded himself of Mia's voice. Authenticity builds trust. We pivot to transparency, Jack stated, his chin lifting slightly. That means not just reporting figures but genuinely engaging our team and investors to create a collaborative environment that generates real solutions. I'm inviting you all to be part of this transformation. The man arched an eyebrow, skepticism shadowing his features. Collaborative environments are nice, but we need results fast. Can you deliver? Jack hesitated, reflecting on the investors' razor-edged expectations. The conflict within him flared, the call for responsiveness collided with the desire to forge genuine connections. Yes, results are paramount. They will drive everything we do, he answered, pushing past his self-doubt. However, if we don't address the issues transparently and collaboratively, we risk making the same mistakes repeatedly. I believe, together, we can innovate. While some investors leaned back, crossed arms signifying doubt, others offered nods. Light crept into his mind, perhaps his conviction could breach the walls of prejudice surrounding vulnerability in business leadership. The next investor took her cue. What innovative solutions do you envision? Jack embraced the chance to contribute more than statistics. We've identified a few areas within our pipeline that are misaligned with our growth strategy, he explained. Streamlining operations and focusing on niche markets can yield quicker returns, but that's just the start. It's critical that we all share our insights to refine this approach. As he spoke, he noticed the investors gradually unraveled from skepticism. Weaving together data-driven decisions with emotional intelligence could turn tides. Confidence surged within him, along with a feeling he had neglected for far too long. He was worthy of leading this effort. Then, another investor leaned forward, a young woman dressed sharply yet exuding warmth. Jack, you're advocating for teamwork, but what happens when interests clash? How do you handle disputes? Leaders often need to make tough calls. Is that something you can do? The question sunk deep into Jack's psyche, challenging his budding belief in vulnerability. Would he truly be able to navigate conflict without wavering? Was he ready to make hard decisions in the name of collaboration? I recognize that conflicts will arise, Jack replied, meeting her gaze steadily. But handling disputes is an opportunity for growth. Rather than view it as a challenge to my authority, I see it as a chance to empower my team and myself. If we approach disagreements with openness, we can transform friction into fuel for innovative solutions. The room buzzed with murmurs, both approval and hesitance evident. Jack felt a rush of energy. He was stepping into a role that demanded emotional courage, determined to intertwine accountability with empathy. Clarity pierced through his earlier doubts. He was changing, but suddenly, doubt crept back in. Would the investors truly accept this new approach in the face of financial decline? Was he prepared to defend his vision when the pressure rose again? Jack realized he was teetering on the brink of redefining not just his leadership style but his own identity. As the meeting continued, he caught glimpses of engaged faces, even skepticism beginning to wane. The chance to be the authentic leader he aspired to be was unfolding in front of him, but the road ahead was laden with challenges. Suddenly, a voice broke through his thoughts. Jack, you really think this approach will yield meaningful results in the next quarter? Framed in that question was the essence of his journey, a test of not just his plans but his commitment to facing the upcoming battle with clarity and resilience. Would he falter under pressure, or hold firm in his convictions? With the stakes as high as they could be, Jack knew his true trial was just beginning. He would have to confront not only the doubts of others but the depths of his own resolve. How he navigated this moment could change everything, and he felt the weight of his own pending transformation. The next decisions loomed ahead, each laden with consequences. Would he lean into collaboration, or would he grasp at old habits that offered a false sense of control? The true test of his resolve was fast approaching. The energy in the room shifted as more questions rolled in, each one a chisel against the stone of doubt still clinging to Jack's mind. He was in the midst of stormy waters, and while he felt the rising tide of anxiety, there was an equally strong current of possibility surging through him. This was a delicate dance of confidence and vulnerability, and he found himself consciously stepping back from the edge of self-defeat. Jack, you mentioned empowering your team amidst conflict. Give us an example of how you've done this in the past, another investor requested, her tone clipped yet curious. The inquiry caught Jack off guard. Past actions, once sources of embarrassment and defeat, now shimmered with the potential for growth. There had been a moment last year, a project that had spiraled into chaos due to conflicting ideas among team members. Instead of dictating solutions, he recalled how he had invited his colleagues into a facilitated discussion, turning heated exchanges into constructive dialogue. In participating actively, they had unpacked grievances and discovered mutual objectives. That single experience had lit a spark of collaboration that reignited the team's collective drive. I faced a similar situation where team dynamics were unraveling over a crucial project, Jack replied, his voice steadier now. I organized a meeting where everyone could voice their concerns without fear of judgment. It became a learning moment, a turning point where rather than fracture, we found ways to bridge differences and innovate together. He saw the room react. Investors leaned in, caught in the tide of his story. They no longer just saw a man grappling with uncertainty but a leader who could wield adversity as a catalyst for unity. Impressive, the young investor noted, the hint of a smile breaking through her earlier skepticism. But what if your ideas fail? What will you do then? Her gaze felt like a direct challenge, the kind that invited Jack to confront his fear of failure head-on. His heart raced, and he grappled with this new format of inquiry. To embrace failure was a skill he was still mastering. Failures can be pivot points, he stated slowly, each word carefully chosen. In my past, I've learned that sidelining tough lessons only barricades progress. If we stumble, we analyze, adapt, and recalibrate our strategy together. That honesty cultivates resilience. Behind her, other investors began to nod, and Jack felt a wave of hope wash over him. Perhaps his evolution wasn't just personal, it could ripple into the fabric of their professional environment, but just as momentum began to swell in his favor, a darker shadow loomed. With all due respect, Jack, interjected a seasoned investor with a voice like gravel, your approach seems too soft for Wall Street. At the end of the day, we need to be cutthroat to survive. How do you reconcile your convictions with the harsh realities we operate within? The room shifted. Jack felt the weight of that statement settle heavily on his shoulders. He was no longer merely advocating for a new style of leadership, he was defending the very essence of his evolving identity. Was he prepared to wear two faces, the empathetic leader and the uncompromising businessman? He inhaled deeply, centering himself. I understand the need for strategy and decisiveness, but I believe that profitability stems from how well we harness the skills and spirits of our people. Compassion doesn't negate results, it can enhance them. If we're willing to be vulnerable, we can cultivate an environment where each member doesn't just exist for a paycheck, but thrives as contributors to a shared vision. As murmurs of contemplation coursed through the group, Jack sensed a flicker of something beyond mere curiosity. It was the burgeoning undercurrent of belief. Yet, the tension still simmered, a reminder that he stood at a precipice. With sweat pooling at his brow, Jack understood the stakes. He was not merely rebuilding a company, he was in the act of shaping himself. His internal landscape mirrored the decisions he faced. Each moment was a test of authenticity versus the instinct to conceal. The question lurked beneath the surface: would he surrender to fear if things turned rough, or would he harness every lesson learned to fortify his resolve? He held that thought, a reluctant tremor running through him. The path ahead still bristled with uncertainties. Would he eventually be able to navigate the complexity of his dual role without losing himself? As the meeting wore on, an unmistakable truth began to crystallize in Jack's thoughts: there would be no clean escape from confrontation. A reckoning with both the board and his own fears awaited him. But lurking behind this new conviction was another seed of doubt: would the same investors rally behind his vision once push came to shove? The floor seemed to shift beneath him, and as eyes turned expectantly toward him, Jack realized that the greatest challenge ahead would not be among his investors but within himself. What he would have to face might redefine not only his leadership journey, but his very essence, and as the looming moment bore down like a heavy fog, Jack felt the undeniable pull, a sense of urgency spiraling within him. The arena was set for a clash not just of ideas, but of identities. How could he cultivate a new leadership vision without sacrificing his own core? The next challenge was unraveling before his eyes, and its implications gripped him tight, like a vice. In the dimly lit boardroom, Jack Thompson exuded a newfound air of confidence, transforming the palpable tension into a canvas for collaborative dialogue. The once daunting stakes of the merger now represented an opportunity, a moment to prove not only his leadership ability but also his commitment to authenticity. He stood at a crossroads, reshaped by his conversations with Mia and his experiences facing both personal and professional demons. Thank you for your patience, he began, inhaling deeply. It's clear that our challenges are significant, but I believe that by fostering a culture of transparency within our organization, we can transform this situation into a robust foundation for innovation. His voice resonated with conviction, a stark contrast to the uncertainty that had clouded his previous interactions. Jack's resolve to embrace vulnerability had been fortified, and he sensed a collective curiosity lingering among the investors. Questions flowed in rapid succession from the table, but Jack navigated them deftly, each response building credibility. Yes, we face financial setbacks. But acknowledging our vulnerabilities doesn't mean we're weak, it makes us stronger. His assertion hung in the air, a challenge to conventional wisdom, and he could see the shift. Some investors leaned in, their skepticism softening as they absorbed his words. As discussions transitioned from highlighting challenges to brainstorming solutions, Jack no longer felt like the isolated billionaire behind a glossy veneer. He felt like a collaborator, open and eager, his extensive knowledge now harmonizing with the diverse insights of those around him. Together, they dissected strategies, transformed fears into potential growth avenues, and forged paths they had not previously considered. Then came the moment when a sharp-eyed investor posed a question, one that struck at the core of Jack's recent transformation. How do you plan to implement this culture change among your team? Jack paused, briefly reflecting on the journey he had traversed alongside Mia. It begins with leading by example, he said firmly. I'll initiate a series of workshops that promote open dialogue and mutual support throughout our departments. We'll create spaces for honest feedback, acknowledging that mistakes are part of our growth. Together, we will develop resilience rather than fear failure. His words ignited a flicker of excitement in the room, the energy palpable as investors began to visualize the potential for a healthier company culture. He realized that the connection he was forging was not solely for his benefit but an offer encouraging others to confront their own defenses. When the meeting concluded, Jack received nods and murmurs of approval from investors, many eager to see this new vision materialize. The transition he had envisioned was moving away from a self-imposed isolation towards a collective journey. Jack left that room feeling liberated, empowered by his decision to be authentic, a feeling he had tirelessly sought but had only just begun to grasp. In the days following the meeting, Jack's transformation played out daily. He exchanged witty banter and open conversations with the team, each interaction fusing respect and camaraderie. The penthouse, once a luxurious prison of solitude, started to feel like a welcoming space filled with laughter, challenges, and teamwork. Jack didn't stop there. He reached out to Mia, inviting her to collaborate on a project that showcased the newfound company ethos. Let us work together to develop community-led initiatives, he proposed. We're stronger when we lean on our connections. As they worked in tandem, he observed her radiant enthusiasm fueling his confidence further. Mia's encouragement corralled his strengths and vulnerabilities into a weapon for growth, drawing him closer to authentic connections while carving substantial personal and professional space. The acknowledgement that he wasn't just a billionaire but a man forged by experience became not a burden but a badge of honor. On the day that the merger was finalized, Jack stood before his colleagues, a lightness in his heart. Today is not just about combining resources, it's about weaving the essence of who we are into the fabric of our work environment. As he glanced around, he saw their faces all aligned, unified through the very trust he had fought to cultivate. Jack's journey culminated not just in immense financial achievement but in the deep satisfaction of realizing that the truest success emerged from connection and authenticity. Recognized as a leader who embodied transparency, he had established an environment where others felt empowered to rise with him. He had conquered the loneliness that had once shadowed him, proving to himself that true leadership is not about wearing a mask but daring to be seen and heard. Jack Thompson emerged not just as a billionaire but as a catalyst for change, proud of the legacy of vulnerability he was now creating for others to follow. His story had transformed from one of isolation into a celebration of shared experiences. Now, he knew this was the moment to ask from heartfelt appreciation for your support. You need to subscribe immediately to keep up with more exclusive emotional stories that inspire growth. Leave a like now because your engagement feeds the algorithm and keeps us shining bright. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who could use a dose of inspiration. Your actions are the lifeblood of stories that matter.